Something About Dr. Mary is a pretty good episode of Frasier. This is the 16th episode of the 7th season. It's directed by Wil Shriner, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. And there's one moment in this that had me cry laughing. It was so amazing, and I will talk about that when we get there. But if you've seen the episode, there's a good chance you'll know which bit it is. It starts off with Frasier and Roz down at Cafe Nervosa. Roz has a few days of vacation, so Frasier has hired a woman called Mary to cover Roz while she's away. She's played by Kim Coles. And initially, it doesn't seem to be going well. Mary doesn't really want to talk, but if she's in the producer's chair, she kind of needs to tell Frasier who the callers are. And Frasier encourages her. She manages to talk. It seems like it's going to be really well done. And then it kind of falls apart very quickly, for Frasier at least. We get a caller called Maria, voiced by Gloria Estefan. And Frasier gives his opinion, and then Mary chimes in with her thoughts. And it seems like all of a sudden she's going to be doing all the talking and giving all of the advice, which is a lot more involvement than what Roz usually has, and Frasier's not very happy about it. We're then at the apartment. Niles comes over. He's very excited. He's made it to the next level in kickboxing, and he and Daphne are the only ones in the room for, I'd say, maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes, and I just wish somebody would say something. It's frustrating, but it's quite beautiful as well. And then Frasier comes over and talks about the problem, and Martin suggests that Frasier won't tell Mary how he feels because she's black, which I think is a bit of a stretch. I don't think that's the case at all. I think Frasier just doesn't like confrontation and he doesn't want to hurt somebody's feelings. Maybe Martin's right, but I don't believe it. And then Niles is demonstrating his kickboxing, and it's initially a very sweet moment. As Daphne's carrying a tray, she walks up behind him, she's watching him from behind, and she smiles, and it's so lovely, and she's enjoying watching him. And Niles turns around and kicks, but because he's moving really quickly, he doesn't see her, and he kicks her, I think, straight on the butt. And of course, she falls, things go everywhere, she lands on her wrist, she's in a lot of pain. It doesn't sound funny, but it's absolutely hysterical, and I laughed so much at it. I watched it 3 times. I found it to be very, very, very funny. We're then back with Frasier and Dr. Mary, as she's now calling herself, which I think should be illegal, and Frasier is more concerned than ever. He's basically losing his show, and Kenny says that the ratings are the best they've ever been, and Mary's going to be a permanent fixture, and Roz is just going to get moved to Gil's show, which I'm sure she'll be thrilled about. So Frasier's not very happy about that either. And back at the apartment, Niles and Frasier roleplay how the conversation could go if Frasier tells Mary how he really feels. And we have Niles as Frasier and Frasier roleplays as Mary, and it was a good performance. It was dramatic, but it was a good performance. And Martin says, well, whenever she gets her own show, she can say what she wants. And Frasier gets an idea. And I loved how this played out, because Frasier phones up and presumably he's telling Kenny, let's give her her own show. Then we can go back to having Ross as the producer. You don't need to move her to Gil. But we cut to KSEL. Mary is now sitting beside Frasier, and a woman called Louise, played by Carla Renata, is in the producer's chair, and Louise and Mary are having this conversation over Frasier's head, and it was so funny. It was a really, really funny scene. We're then at Cafe Nervosa with Roz again, and then Mary comes in, and Frasier tells her the truth. And he does at one point say, well, I didn't want to tell you because you're black, which I just feel is a bit bizarre. So does my cat. I don't believe him. If he'd carried on and said, it's because you're black and I was worried, you would assume I was discriminating, and he was like nervous because he was worried she'd get the wrong message, I could understand the feeling. I still don't think he should have said it, but that's kind of not what happened. So I don't know, it just felt a little bit awkward and unnecessary. But much to her credit, Mary was really nice about it, and she said yes, she was upset that Frasier felt like he couldn't talk to her about it, but she was okay with it, and she'd just been offered her own show elsewhere anyway, so realistically, she's happy about it. Also ironic, because Frasier wouldn't have needed to say anything since she's been offered her show anyway, so we had this awkward moment for no reason, but I thought it was nice, and she's a really likeable character, but it's very easy to see why this would wind Frasier up, and Roz still being on vacation means that we need another producer, and this is Chuck, played by Scott Lowell, and it was fine. It was not a bad way to, I guess, conclude what's happening with the producer, and then we end the episode with Niles serving Daphne while she's in bed, resting her injuries. So not a bad way to end it either. I like it. It's a good episode. I think it works really well. I think Mary is a really great character. I think she's got a brilliant energy. There are some bits, as I've mentioned, that I didn't think were perfect, but Niles kicking Daphne was just so beautifully executed that it's just the funniest thing. It's absolutely brilliant. Really good episode. I doubt it would ever be a personal favourite, but by no means would I skip it if I'm binge watching season 7. Something About Dr. Mary is ultimately a really brilliant episode of Frasier.